This one's pretty dry. Well, it was a pretty trying turkey season, but as you can see, ended up pulling it out in the end. Last day, last minute. Shot this bird about 10 a.m. on Sunday here in Iowa. Literally heading to the truck. I had decided they had whooped me for the season. I was giving up, throwing in the towel, and took one last peek up the easement road coming into the property, and here come this Tom just walking right in, so made it happen. But it's crazy, these birds, you know, some people swear they're dumb, some people think they're smart. I haven't figured them out yet, so they're smarter than me most of the time. I'm usually on the losing end of the battle. But it was a fun year here. We took kids out. I had a lot of close calls, couldn't get the deal done, and finally I went in last day and got this bird. But this is a bird we had seen all season. He's got this notch right here in his tail fan. Saw that fan out there strutting multiple times all year. Every time we'd think we'd have him figured out, get beat, we'd pop up and kind of go check some fields, and sure enough, he'd be out there 200 yards in the middle of a wide open field. No way to get to him with 4 or 5 hens, so finally even the score, so to speak. So we're back here at the house now, and I've got them laid out on this table. I've actually had them laying out for a couple days and trying to get it dried out. You know, this turkey was pretty rough and beat up and obviously tail feathered, missing here and there, so I wasn't planning on doing any kind of mount on him, but I am going to try and preserve the fan so that we can use that next year. First step is coming up with a fan. So I think you can buy these online pretty readily now, but it's kind of cool to have a fan that you've preserved yourself and be able to use to kill a different bird, so we're going to try that. I actually kept the wings, you know, the spurs and beard and tail feathers, but also the wings. So I put those out on the table, and basically it's a pretty straightforward process if you haven't done it. You just spread it out to where you want it, and then you put some weight on the fan to hold it in place. Some guys will staple it down or pin it in place, but really all you got to do is just put something on it to keep it where it's not going to move on you. And then you just apply salt and borax to the fleshy part of the meat to try and dry that out and get all the moisture. We're going to put another douse, or load it up again here a second time, get it laid out, and hopefully it'll dry a little better now the sun's coming out here, and hopefully we'll have a couple days of dry weather to get this thing cured up. That's what we're doing. I'm going to try and go ahead and get this one positioned and start applying the salt. You'll notice it's got a big hunk of meat here on the back side. I'm going to start with the front, put a little bit on, and then flip it over. So this is sea salt, you know, just regular off the shelf from any store. Some guys use borax. I've seen that a lot. I really haven't done this enough to know which one's better, so if you've got any ideas, certainly be glad to hear them. But we're just gonna liberally apply this, try and coat it as good as we can. What I've seen is, you know, right here you've got kind of a straight down, it's almost like a slope on this bottom part of the fan. The salt doesn't like to stick to it now that it's kind of dry, so I'm going to put something in here to kind of build a bridge almost so that I can hold that salt. I just got this cardboard box here. I'm just going to set it right up basically so when I drop the salt in, this box will kind of prevent it from falling off of that fleshy part there that I'm trying to dry out. So now we got that really well covered. Hopefully that'll do the job this time around. So here we've got the wings laid out, and you can see they're already kind of basically holding their shape. I'm going to go ahead and put some weight back on them again just to make sure they don't close up on me. And then same thing, what I did on the wings is I tried to take out all the bones and a lot of the extra meat that's not really holding the feathers in. That way it just has a chance to cure a little quicker. So I'll just do the same thing here and liberally apply this salt to the base of this wing here. to run out. This is pretty coarse. I don't know how well this will work. Bird ended up having a pretty decent beard on him. He's about 10 and a half inches. But I saw a tip from another guy that a little better turkey hunter than I am. And typically I would just pull the beard straight out of basically the breast, and it's got enough, I don't know what you'd call that, skin, I guess, for lack of a better word, but kind of tough material that holds the beard together. And what he recommended is actually trim it out, so pull out on the skin and leave a little extra meat around there. If you actually leave a little extra meat around there, once it cures down, it has a better tendency to hold those strands of the hair in for a longer period of time. So that's what I tried on this one. I haven't done that before. But we're just going to take a cup and fill it full of salt and kind of poke this down in, and hopefully this will cure up pretty good too. Well, we just got back from a showing appointment on this piece of ground we have out here in Dallas County. I wanted to spend just a few minutes here talking about the market. If you've watched any of our previous videos or following the land market at all, it's probably not a surprise what I'm going to say. It's just a very low inventory market right now. Generally what I've found is people that have land or have owned land, it's been in the family for a number of years, they really don't want to get out of it. They don't really have a desire to give up their land. That's kind of been the trend. Not a lot of properties available. The ones that are available, even if they're priced at what would have been above market less than 6 months ago, is now considered like the floor, and prices are just, they just keep going up. I think probably what would be of value, and what I think a lot of people, especially landowners, don't realize, the ones that are kind of holding tight, there is so many variables right now in the market, so many things that have kind of lined up to where personally, and obviously I'm biased, we're in the business of selling land, but personally I haven't seen a better time to sell than what we have right now today with what's going on. And it's not just Iowa, it's not just here immediately around Des Moines, it's pretty much nationwide. If you put a property on the market and you're okay with not having something to move into right away, now's a great time to sell, because you're going to get more than probably any other time in history. Crop prices are up and interest rates are way down, and so all that is helping with farmland buyers and increasing that demand as well. As I said and alluded to earlier, the pandemic and people just wanting to get away from the city now that they don't necessarily have to work in the office every day. A lot of people are working remote. We're seeing a flood of people looking for places where they can have 40, 60 acres, build a house, as long as they have internet access and can work from a computer. They want to be out in the country. So what I don't think is as obvious is the cycle that we see in farmland. It's a little more common. You have a lot of cyclical nature to land values in farmland. You don't have to go back very far. If you look at 2011, 12, 13, when prices were just through the roof, crop prices came up and land values followed. Shortly after that, they plummeted. As a landowner, what you have to be thinking about right now, if you are considering selling, is when is it going to drop? Is it going to be, this month? Is it going to be 2 years? There's really no way to know, but usually by the time you start seeing the factors that are going to contribute or lead to land values, crop prices, or land values dropping, it's kind of too late, because everybody else knows it as well, and then you're not going to get out of the property what you're hoping to. From a recreational standpoint, if you look at the demand, again, that's driven by people wanting to live out of town or wanting to buy some ground and just kind of have as a weekend retreat. So once the vaccines hit and people start getting vaccinated, potentially going back to work, going back to the old ways of life of, you know, enjoying the weekends in the city at the ball game, things like that. They don't necessarily have to be out in the country to be able to get out of their house. I think that we're gonna see the demand start to slow down, if not reverse. On the farmland side of the market, what I'm seeing there is a big one that, you know, hasn't gotten a lot of publicity is the 1031 exchanges. And if you haven't researched that, I'm not gonna go into all the details, but basically it's a tax avoidance program. So if you sell a piece of land and then you buy, you know, upgrade or what have you, maybe you sell a piece of farmland, buy an investment property like a commercial building, or you buy a home in Florida or something like that, second home. There's a lot of different scenarios that you can use a 1031, but the point is they allow you to avoid taxes if you replace the property and follow all the proper guidelines. Those are kind of under attack right now. The current administration is looking at doing away with 1031 exchanges. So whether you agree with that or not, if you're a landowner and you're thinking, well, I don't really want to sell right now, I'll just keep waiting until prices go up and I can always do a 1031 later, that might not be the case. So you definitely need to look into that and be concerned about that. Also, inflation has rapidly increased, and you know, the government again keeps saying that that's not the case. But if you want to go build a home right now and go to the hardware store and look to buy a piece of lumber, 2x4 sheet of plywood, I mean, it's sometimes triple the cost of what it was a year ago. What is going to happen is, if inflation keeps happening, the Fed will increase interest rates to slow down the buying power so that people aren't just continuing to buy, and then all of a sudden the demand dries up for that reason. So I just think it's important that as a landowner, if you're considering selling a piece of property, that you at least be aware that that's a potential, that, you know, you think you might have all the time in the world to get the property sold and you're going to get a premium price out of it no matter when you sell. That's not always the case. I figured it'd be good just to share kind of some thoughts that I'm having on that and where I'm seeing the market. And, you know, I'm not trying to predict the future or scare anybody. I just think it's good to be aware of what's going on and how that could potentially impact you, especially if you're in the market to sell some land.